10 years ago, this November 13th, France was hit with the worst attack on its soil since World War II. A series of coordinated attacks were carried out, starting first at the Stade de France football stadium in the town of Saint-Denis, and then moving to bars, restaurants, and the Bataclan concert hall in the heart of Paris. 130 people were killed that night, hundreds more were hurt. Well, throughout the day today, several ceremonies are being held to remember the victims of the attacks. The very first was held at the Stade de France Stadium, where we heard from the daughter of the victim there, speaking alongside the mayor of the town of Saint-Denis. The French President Emmanuel Macron was at that ceremony along with the First Lady Brigitte Macron. They going to each of the 6 sites of the attacks throughout the day, laying a wreath and listening to the names of the victims being read out. Well, there you can see everyone standing, waiting for President Macron to arrive at the Comptoir Voltaire. Now, this is a restaurant in the 11th arrondissement, Boulevard Voltaire. A suicide bomber detonated inside this cafe restaurant. Fortunately, no civilians were killed there, but the suicide bomber, of course, died. Just after that, they'll be moving on to the Belle Equipe, a cafe where some 20 people were killed, and finally the Bataclan concert hall in the 11th arrondissement. Here you can see Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo arriving to take her place alongside Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte Macron. Let's listen in.
Mesdames, Messieurs, la cérémonie commémorative en hommage aux victimes des attentats du 13 novembre 2015 va débuter. Monsieur Emmanuel Macron, président de la République, Madame Brigitte Macron, Madame Anne Hidalgo, maire de Paris,
Mayor of Paris, Philippe Duperron, President of the 13-11-15 organization, and Antoine Ferrero in charge of the Victims Organization, are now standing before the commemorative plaque. In memory of the victims of the attacks on the 13th of November 2015. We will now mark a minute of silence.
Nous vous remercions.
Thank you.
La cérémonie est à présent terminée. Merci.
The ceremony is now over.
That was French President Emmanuel Macron. You can see there alongside the First Lady Brigitte, the Mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, as they paid their respects at the Comptoir Voltaire, one of the 6 sites that were hit that tragic night, November 13th, 2015. Next, they will head toward La Belle Equipe, where some 20 people were killed before finishing these ceremonies of the day at the Bataclan concert hall, where 90 people were killed. Our Norris Trent is at the Bataclan at the moment. She joins me now live from there. Catherine, talk us through exactly what happened at the Bataclan that night 10 years ago.
Jeannie, there were absolutely horrific scenes at the Bataclan concert hall 10 years ago. There was pretty much a packed house watching the American rock band, the Eagles of Death Metal, when 3 attackers wearing suicide vests and highly armed broke in and started shooting on the crowd. In the first half hour of this long-lasting attack, they'd fired hundreds of bullets and killed 90 people. So you can just imagine the pandemonium and terror that there was inside. People fleeing for their lives, crawling over dead bodies on their way to try and escape. Others ended up blocked inside with the attackers, and a small group of them, around a dozen or so, were actually taken upstairs to a small room, a small corridor, and held hostage for 2 further hours by 2 of the attackers. Meanwhile, the police reinforcements were arriving outside, and they got their special forces together before they launched an assault at midnight 20 Paris time, and they managed to rescue the remaining hostages and kill the 2 attackers in that assault. So a remarkable feat, really. And lots of those police officers are down here today, among with other members of the emergency services and, of course, survivors and family members of some of those who were victims. There have been very emotional scenes here, as you can imagine. People remembering those scenes of horror, scenes of terror 10 years ago, and clearly for some, it's still just as painful as it was back then.
Absolutely. And Catherine, earlier you were at the Place de la République, which has become really a symbolic spot for so many French people in moments of crisis like this was 10 years ago. Tell us a bit about the outpouring of solidarity that we're seeing there today.
Yeah, we're seeing people once again filing into the Place de la République, which is in the east of the city. All this area where the attacks took place in Paris, or in the kind of eastern area of the city, which is home to lots of cafes and bars where lots of young people go out and party pretty much every weekend. And so it was such a huge shock that so many of them were attacked and lost their lives. And very quickly, that big square, that big intersection, the Place de la République, filled up with people offering tributes, as they are now. Flowers, candles, writing messages, pinning up photos. And that's very much the atmosphere that we're seeing now, a decade on. So tears there, there's grief, mourning, still really shock and disbelief. But there's also this feeling of resilience, where people saying, you know, life has to go on. It has gone on. People have gone back to those cafes and bars where they used to celebrate. They've reopened those venues now. So Paris is marking a very somber moment today of mourning, but there is a sense that in the capital, you know, that this Paris city motto of fluctuat nec mergita, Paris may be bowed, may be rocked by the waves, but will not sink. There's that spirit of resilience that still lives on.
Catherine, thank you for that. France 24's Catherine Norris Trent.